It's Belinda. What should I do if I have an emergency while waiting for the interview to start and need to cancel? So, emergencies happen. Emergencies happen. They happen. Communication is what needs to take place on your part. When you have an emergency, you want to communicate that as soon as possible. If you are, let's say you have an emergency and you're getting ready to sign on for the interview in the next few minutes, send an email. Send an email, because what happens is, here's the opposite of that. So you have an emergency. You didn't sign on. There's no email. I always give people a 10-minute grace period, just because I do understand computer problems. So I always give people a 10-minute grace period to kind of get on. In 10 minutes, you're not on. I have no email. There's no voicemail. I think you've abandoned the position. That you're not interested, that you just said, you know what, I don't have time for her. 20, 30 minutes later, I get an email that says, hey, I had an emergency. So by then, you've missed the opportunity with me. Now, I can't speak for other HR people, but you've missed it with me. The moment that you have an emergency is when you send that email. Because then I feel like then there's grace, and there's communication, and you respect this interview time enough to say, hey, I know I had an interview. I had an emergency. You don't even have to say what the emergency was. A lot of people go overshare. They overshare in the interview, but that's for another question. I'm not going to answer that in this. But people overshare. I had an emergency. I apologize. Is it possible to reschedule? Is it possible that maybe I can get on 15 minutes late? I'm trying to deal with this emergency. Any of that is what you can say, because that's courtesy. To let your time come and go 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, then you send an interview, I don't even respond. They just didn't get the job. So you want to make sure that, to be professional, if you have an emergency and right before the interview, you want to communicate that. You can call, leave a detailed message, preferably send an email so that person can know and reschedule.